Hi, I'm Deb Malone, Executive Director of the Hudson Valley Gateway Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to our very first live stream seminar event. These events will be produced by Mike Graham from Grade A Communications, and they're sponsored by Jan Mercandani, President and CEO of Westchester Marketing Cafe, who also happens to be our very first speaker for the series. So she'll be speaking today about Google Analytics. And if everyone's like me, when I go on Google Analytics, all I see are a lot of bars and a lot of graphs, and I don't know what to look for or how I should be searching or how my business is doing. So Jan, welcome and thank you first of all for sponsoring the series. And I'm looking forward to finding out more about understanding Google Analytics.
Thanks, Deb. Thanks for having me. So we get the questions a lot, and we work with a lot of clients on Google Analytics so that they can make business decisions based on what is happening with their metrics. So I know we have very limited time today, so we're going to just jump right in. So we want to go over the top 20 things you must know about Google Analytics to grow your business, because Google Analytics for analytics' sake isn't really going to do much for you.
And can I just interrupt for 1 second? I just want to let everybody know, if you have questions, you can type them in and we will answer them.
Yes, please do. To really jump in anytime. So, the more questions, the better. If you have the question, I'm sure somebody else has the same question, so don't be shy. But this is one of my favorite quotes. It's from John Wanamaker, who is sort of the grandfather of modern marketing. And he's famous for saying, "I know that half of my marketing budget is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half." So, when you sort of look at it like that, it really brings home, why you want to start looking at your marketing metrics. And, Google Analytics is a great free tool that you can use to take a look and see what's happening on your website. So the first thing that a lot of people don't understand is making sure that their analytics account is set up properly. So we're going to jump in with that as number one thing that you need to know. For each business, for each account, you have one analytics account ID, meaning that's the unique identifier that is going to be used to track all of the data. So what we're looking at here in the screenshot is what they call the dashboard for Google Analytics. And that first column, we're in the admin section, and you want to make sure that you have your account set up. What's really important here is that it is the business account. So in other words, if you're working with a consultant, which you may very well be doing, sometimes what will happen is the consultant will set up the account and assign you the number under their umbrella account. You want to make sure that if you are if you're the business owner, that you own that account, you can give permissions, and we'll get into that in a minute, for the consultant rather than the other way around. So make sure that you have one analytics account that's managing all of your account properties, which brings us to slide number two, point number two. A lot of clients come to us and they say, well, we have a web app, or we have this other property, so we have two different analytics accounts. And you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that everything is sort of managed under one umbrella. So when you set up your analytics account, if you have a website, for example, that's one account and one property. If you have an app that you use, for example, if you are an insurance company and you maybe have an app where clients would submit any claims, then you would have the same account. You would have an additional property that's tracking how many downloads you get for the app, and you can track that data as well under the same account, but it's measuring it separately under your property. So that's something a lot of people don't realize. So you want to make sure that you go into the admin settings and get everything set up properly. The other thing that you want to pay attention to are your views. So for example, on your website, I'll use my own website as an example. We get traffic from all over the world, but we don't do business all over the world. We really focus on the Hudson Valley region, and most of our clients come from that local region. So what's most important for us is we're really looking at our US traffic, and we create a view so that we can focus on that. And you can see that that's in the third column in your admin settings. What's really super important with the view is when we get into filters, that you have one sort of bucket of data that is raw and complete, and all of the information from your website. I'm going to focus mostly on websites today. That you're not filtering, you're not doing anything with. It's all of that raw data, and you would do that in your view. So again, so you can have one account. You could potentially have multiple properties if you have a website and an app, for example, and you may have any number of different views that let you sort of look at specific data based on the information that you want to look at. And that's all set up through the admin settings in your dashboard. The other thing that is really important as you're going through and setting up your account properly is you want to make sure that you are giving users the correct account access and the correct permissions. And this is something that a lot of people make the mistake, and they'll say, oh, well, here's my login information. Please do not do that. That is not good for you or your account. You want to make sure that you're giving people the right access for what they need in order to do their job. So you'll see here, again, we're still in the dashboard. We're still in the admin settings. Users can be added at any level. So if you have somebody who is a partner in your business, they can be set up with account level access. You may have somebody who is developing the app, for example, we're going back to our insurance case study. And so you want to have your app developer have access to the analytics for the app, but they don't necessarily need or care to look at the information about what's going on in the website. Versus somebody who maybe is an administrative assistant or something in the office, and maybe you want to give them access to a specific view, something that they're responsible for. So you can do that again using these three columns, whether it's the account column, the property column, or your view column, and you can add those in any one of those areas. That's different from the permission settings. The permission settings will let you say, give access to just look at reports. They can't add users or anything. So if you have somebody who's sort of a junior level person, maybe an intern that's going to be working on your analytics, you can let them look at reports for a specific view, but not have access to be able to add additional users. Conversely, you may have somebody who you want to be able to add users for a specific view, and they have top level permissions, but only at the view level. They don't have account level access. So for many small businesses, you may have one or two people that will have account access and maybe have different levels of permission. But what's really important is that you're not giving people your account login information, which happens unfortunately fairly frequently. So this lets you give people access to what they need in order to do their job, but not the keys to the kingdom. One thing too that a lot of people don't realize that they can do or should do is exclude their internal traffic. And what I mean by that is, so you have somebody who is managing your website, for example. Well, when they go in and they're tooling around the website to see what's happening and making sure everything is working properly, all of that traffic is getting tracked, and that's going to skew your data. So what you want to make sure that you do is create a filter. Still, here we are again in the admin settings on that view. So for example, at Westchester Marketing Cafe, what we've done is we created a view, as I mentioned, for just our US traffic, but I have filtered out by our IP address any traffic that comes from the office, so that we're not muddying our data with traffic that we're generating, because not that we don't matter, we do, but in this particular case, we actually don't. We don't want to skew our information. And so you can filter out by IP address, you can include or exclude by region. But again, going back to what I was saying before, is you want to create an additional filter for a specific view. You do not want to filter your raw data. It's really important when you're setting up these filters and you're setting up your account properly that you always have one bucket of data that is everything. Because once you create a filter for a particular view, all of that information is actually taken out, meaning that is no longer accessible for you. So for example, say you're creating a filter to exclude a particular IP, and then you realize 6 months down the line that, oh, well, you know what, you either used the wrong IP address, or it was too broad and you were pulling in, you were excluding other data that you did not want to include, or that you did not want to exclude rather. All that information is gone. So you always want to, if you're going to create a filter, create a particular view and a new view and apply a filter to that rather than your raw data. So, and if you, again, if you, to what Deb was saying before, if you have any questions as we're going through this, you know, feel free to put in your questions and we can get back to those.
And this is a service you can provide, correct? You can come and set these things up for businesses and set up their
yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it's not, you know, there's a lot of information out there. We certainly provide that service because it is really important that you want to make sure all of this is set up properly from the beginning. And one thing that we always say to clients too is, even if you don't think that you're going to start looking at your Google Analytics, get it set up. When you're setting up a new website, it's a perfect time to go through this exercise, so that when you are ready to start really drilling into your data, you have information to look at. If you wait until you are looking to start evaluate what's happening on your website, and then you add the Google Analytics at that point, now you've got to wait another 6 months until you actually have some information to look at. So the sooner you get it set up, the more data you'll have when you're ready to start evaluating. That's a good question. So another question that we get a lot is how to get it set up. So what's really important is on the left side of the screen, you see, again, we're narrowing down to the dashboard in Google Analytics. We're still in admin, and you can see the link for the tracking information. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you see at the top highlighted where it's your UA tracking ID number. If you are in WordPress, for example, there's a lot of plugins that will allow you just simply add the tracking ID number, and the plugin will do the work of making sure that your tracking code is added to every page on your website. If you're not on WordPress, or for whatever reason you want to add it to directly to your header or your footer file so that it's included on every page, then what you want to grab is what you see highlighted below, the website tracking code. And that will get added to, like I said, either the header or the footer file, and it will be included on every page on the website. The reason you want to do that is because as visitors come to your website and they click from one page to the next, you want to be able to follow them as they travel around your website, and that code is what enables Google Analytics to do that for you. So it's pretty straightforward if you're, you know, in WordPress. If you're not in WordPress, it gets a little bit, you know, a little bit fussier because you want to make sure that you're adding it in the right spot. But that's the information that you're looking for. Here is something that is really super important and often, too often gets overlooked, is defining your goals. A lot of times people will just kind of add Google Analytics and think that, okay, well, we can see how much traffic is coming to the website, but that's not a goal. that's just sort of, okay, well, we want to make sure people are seeing us, but you want to make sure that you're paying attention to how is that going to help your business. So if you're an e-commerce site, it's easy. You want to increase sales. But if you're a service, if you're a service business, it may be a little bit trickier to establish what your business goal is. And it might be something, for example, you want to increase your subscribers so that as you're sending out specials or information about new services that you're offering, you are staying in touch with your target audience. Maybe, and it probably should be, that you want to get some more phone calls. You want people picking up the phone and getting in touch with you about your services and your business. Those are business goals. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to, well, what am I trying to do? What's going to move the needle in terms of me growing my business? And then once you have those goals, now it becomes imperative that you figure out how are you measuring those goals and how can you improve your success rate with those goals on your website. But the first thing you have to do is figure out where you're going. In order to evaluate what's working and what's not working, you want to obviously understand, and this, Deb, goes back to what you were saying earlier, what is it that you're looking at? And some of the terminology and some of the jargon can be very confusing. One of the questions we get all the time is, what is a bounce rate? What does it mean? And what's good or bad? So a bounce rate is when somebody comes to your website, they do not interact with anything on your website, and they leave. So, for example, somebody finds you in a Google search, they land on your home page or whatever page they're going to, they say, oh, well, this isn't what I'm looking for, and they click to the next website, or they abandon you right away. That is different from an exit page in which somebody comes to your website, they find information of interest, and they click around, even if it's that same page, and then they leave. Because obviously you don't want people coming to your website and staying there forever. You want them picking up the phone. You want them, filling out a contact form or somehow engaging with your content and then leaving. So it's really important to understand the difference between a bounce rate, between your bounce rate and an exit page and what's happening with that. In terms of,
I had heard that with the bounce rate, that if it's done by mistake, if you bounce out immediately, it's not tracked. Is that it, or it has to? You have to be on that page for like a couple of seconds for it to be tracked. Is that true?
No, I mean, Google Analytics is really, they're tracking everything really down to milliseconds. That might be related to something with AdWords, and that might be whether they're
I know
tracking.
it has to do with AdWords. I know it has to do with AdWords, but someone had mentioned about with the bounce rate for Google Analytics. So, but
no, I mean, you look at that and you can see, and that's one of the things when we get into goals later about, you want to increase time on page and so forth. But what's, a lot of times people will say, well, what's a good bounce rate? And, in terms of bounce rate, it's really going to vary depending on the page, depending on, how people are getting to the page. Generally speaking, if you're below 50%, you're doing pretty good, because a lot of people will just kind of noodle around and they're clicking on stuff. Not everybody is going to be your target customer. So you're going to get a lot of traffic that will show up on your website that isn't necessarily a good fit for you. So, don't get freaked out if you, if your bounce rate is, 25% or whatever, it's fine. You really want to focus on some of the other information that you're getting about who is coming to your website, and that will really help you bring your bounce rate down. Another question we get all the time is, what's a new visitor? What's a new visit? What's Google talking about with this stuff? So the way this is being tracked is when somebody comes to your website, and this of course gets now very complicated, especially with the new EU privacy laws that have just been implemented. But a new visitor is when somebody comes to the website and Google's seeing that there's no cookie that's been set on that device. And so Google recognizes, well, there's no cookie, so this must be a new visitor. Versus a new visit, which is different because Google is now seeing, well, there is a cookie, but that cookie has been previously set and more than 30 minutes have passed, or it's in a new window, or whatever that might be. So that they're saying that they're recognizing the visitor, but it's been a while. So those are two things that kind of confuse people a lot. And the visits are often called sessions, and Google sort of changes the terminology every so often. But that's basically the gist of, when somebody's new to your website versus if they're coming back. Now, I have to give you the caveat with that, which is some people don't accept cookies on their browsers. So those are all coming in as new visits. This is usually where I kind of drop in like, oh yeah, by the way, Google Analytics is fabulous, but it's not foolproof. Because again, if people don't have cookies set, or if they're browsing anonymously, a lot of that information that Google would be and could be tracking kind of gets stripped out. So as you're evaluating your analytics, bear in mind, these are broad strokes. These are indications of what's happening on your website. This is not your brand new Bible that you can, put your stake in the ground and say 100% these are accurate. These are really just sort of general guidelines to show you what's generally happening on your website, and for the reasons I just mentioned. Direct traffic versus referral traffic. So direct traffic is you go to a Hudson Valley Gateway Chamber networking breakfast and you hand out your business card, and that person now goes back to their office and they type in your URL directly into their browser. They're direct traffic. They might follow a JavaScript link from somewhere, or a redirect. So if you change your URL, for example, you have a new website, that redirect is going to get tracked as direct traffic. Referral traffic, conversely, is somebody clicks a link from somewhere else. So it might be an email blast that you sent out. It could be a social media post that you shared. It could be information about your website from another third-party website. That information is all getting tracked as referral traffic, and we'll take a look at that in a little bit. So now we're getting into the reports themselves, and this is where people sort of get overwhelmed because now there's just oodles and oodles of information. So let's kind of cut to the chase and see what's useful and what's not useful. A real-time report, I got to tell you honestly, I don't use a ton. This was mine from this morning from our website. Looking at 2 users is not going to be particularly useful for me. It's not giving me a whole lot of actionable information because we just don't get the volume. I don't expect to get the volume that an Amazon is going to be getting. So whether or not that's useful for you, I have not heard of any small businesses that have come up with any real meaningful uses for a real-time report. The only thing I could really think of is if you send out an email blast or something, and you're doing a special, if you're an e-commerce site and you want to kind of track and see if people are kind of getting hung up somewhere along the way, you might be interested in that. But I don't look at it a whole ton and find it of limited use. The audience reports is a great report to look at. We're looking at one particular report, but as you can see on the left-hand side, these are all of the various sort of what I call vanilla reports. They're sort of out of the box. Google has already put them together for you, and you can click through and see various metrics in terms of, you're looking at your audience overview, your active users. This particular report, I went right into what they call affinity categories. So you can take a look at the types of people that are looking at your website. And so you can start to say, well, you know what, does this generally match the type of people that I do business with? Does this in general sort of mirror my clientele or my customer base? Depending on the industry, this may or may not give you a lot of intelligence. If you're e-commerce, it would. If you're a blogger, it might. If you are, if you have sort of a very narrow band of customers that you work with, this can give you some information. I find it not as helpful because the affinity categories are fairly broad and they're fairly evenly broken out. So I don't particularly use this, but I encourage you all to kind of, when you go in, take a look and see if these reports give you information in terms of, again, does it match in general your clientele? And these are right out of the gate, but you can see interest, you can find out about the geography. If you just kind of look down on that left-hand column, are they coming from the same towns and cities and geographic area that you do business with? Are they mostly new versus returning? The new versus returning is useful because if you have, say, for example, you're a hair salon and you have the ability for your clients to come on your website and make an appointment, then you might expect that you're getting a lot more returning visitors versus new visitors, right? If you are, if once people are doing business with you, there's not a reason for them to necessarily be going back to your website. They've either contracted with you, an electrician comes to mind. Once they know who you are, they're not necessarily going back to your website. There's nothing for them to do there. They already have your phone number, hopefully, in their phone, so they can call you directly, and there's not any action items to be done on the website. So they might expect to have a lot more new visitors versus returning visitors. So you want to think about, well, what would you expect that to look like for your particular business? The acquisition reports, this one is particularly useful because it gives you information about where your traffic is coming from. This particular report, we went into acquisitions and we scrolled down to referrals to take a look and see, well, where's the traffic coming from? So if you do, especially if you do any kind of paid advertising, this one is one that you want to pay attention to, whether it's paid ads, Google AdWords, or whether you're doing traditional print ads. You can kind of see where, if that's paying off. So this is where the rubber really hits the road. If you're paying $500 for an ad on a blog somewhere, for example, or on a media site, and they're saying, well, we get in front of 50,000 visitors a month. Are you getting any of that traffic back to your website? And if you are, say, you're getting, 10 clicks a month or 100 clicks a month, how many clicks do you need to get a phone call that will turn into a piece of business? Now you're really making some actionable decisions about, well, I spent $500 on the ad, and that's turned into now 100 clicks, 10 of which turned into phone calls, and we got 2 new clients from that, and they each were paying $1,000. Well, that's pretty easy math. That $500 ad is paying off. If you're not seeing clicks from that referral source and you're not getting phone calls from that referral source, that that $500 is money not well spent, and you can look at other avenues to spend that advertising dollar. So that's really where you're trying to make some actionable business decisions based on what you're seeing on the reports. A perfect real-world example with this is we had a client who was doing that exact thing. He was paying for ads through a local magazine, and he said, "You know what, Jan?" He says, "I don't think we're going to renew. We're not getting anything from that." And we went back to his reports, and we were able to see, well, you know what? If we back out from all of your registrations to your to where that traffic came from, you got 2 registrations, and those folks are coming back at least for a couple of years on average. So for $100, definitely, go ahead and renew. It's money well spent. Behavior reports. These are also a lot of really good information. The page timings is something new that Google Analytics is offering now. Definitely you want to pay attention to that. Is your site loading quickly? This is something that the search engines are actually ranking for now. So if your pages are slow to load, especially on mobile devices, you're actually going to get dinged for that. So you definitely want to pay attention to how quickly your pages are loading, and they actually have speed suggestions also as a report that you can look at in terms of improving the performance of your website. Site content. What pages are people looking at? What are they reading? If you're spending, an hour a week writing a blog article, are those articles being read? If they are being read, okay, well then how do you convert that? How do you improve on that in terms of getting people to a contact form, to, reach out to you to see if there's an opportunity to business? Are they doing searches on your website? If you have this great blog that you're providing for your readers, are they doing searches? If you're seeing a lot of searches for a particular topic, you can maybe write more about that topic or refresh some of your articles. So again, you're trying to make decisions based on, what's happening. Conversions. Conversions are when you set up a specific goal. And when I say goal in this case, I mean an actual goal that you're setting up inside of Google Analytics. And you can find out and you can watch and see if that goal is being completed. You can track product and sales performance. You can find out if people are going through to a specific thank you page after they've filled out a contact form. And you need to set those up before they can be measured. So that is on the left-hand side under goal URLs, and you can click around and see, but you have to set those up first. Secondary dimensions is what we've been looking at so far, just sort of the plain vanilla out-of-the-box reports that Google provides for you. You can also add a secondary dimension so that you're really drilling down into the data. So for example, now we're going back to the acquisitions referral report, and we can see that's the generic report, but we've added a secondary dimension in terms of the destination page. So for example, if you are paying to be included in a directory somewhere and you're able to add a couple of different links, which pages are people going to from that directory? So it gives you some information about, well, you know what, I'm seeing that the upcoming gigs, what workshops am I doing? That's a really popular page from these different directories. And I know, number one, I need to make sure that that page is up to date. And I also need to maybe share that wider in different avenues to see, to get that information out there, because clearly it's resonating with people. So again, what's the goal? What's my business goal? What are people interacting with? And then how do I improve on that particular goal using this information? Advanced search reports. This is another really good one. Especially if you have a lot of content on your website, you can actually do a quick search by product category so that you can look at just the information for a particular product category or a particular topic in your blog, so that you can look at just that bucket of information and compare the information, the various pages within just that section of your website. And that's just you can see that on the top right of your report, right above the table, and you can just type in whatever word or phrase you're looking to filter by, and then it gives you a subset of that data. And that's not really a true filter, it's a temporary filter. You're really just looking to sort inside of the existing information, and it's temporary, so you don't have to worry about messing up your raw data, which we were talking about earlier. And then setting up goals, we talked about that. So these are the specific analytic goals as opposed to your business goals that we talked about at the start. You can set up a specific, we want to make sure that we're getting people to our contact page, but that they're actually filling out the contact form and then go through to a thank you page. Or if they go through the checkout process, that they end up on our thank you page. Obviously, that's very meaningful. And if you're looking and seeing that there's a lot of people that are going to the contact form page, but not a lot of people getting through to the thank you page, then you're seeing that there's a disconnect. People are going to a particular page, but they're not completing the action that you would expect or hope to see on that page. So that's going to give you some information in terms of, well, am I asking for too much information on that contact form? Maybe I simplify it. Or, you know, is there a required field that maybe we don't really need to require that field, but we can leave it there as an optional field. So again, you're making decisions about what's happening on your website with your content based on the information that you're seeing. The duration, the pages per screen, per session, we don't really use that a whole lot, but they do have that as goals that you can set up in Google Analytics. The event definitely is one that you want to pay attention to. For example, do you have a video on your website? Are people watching the video? How much of the video are they watching? And you can track all of that information, setting up a goal in Google Analytics. Review regularly, but don't be obsessive. I have clients that are real data freaks, and they get in and they just look at all the different reports, and they're so cool, and they can click around and they can slice and dice the information, and they really enjoy it. But for most of us, we've got a million other things to do. This is just a small piece of our job description. So definitely, you know, make an appointment with yourself to go back and review it. Probably once a month, honestly, is fine for most small businesses. You know, go in, review it, take a look. Is it, you know, doing what you expect it to do? Look at some of the stuff that you're really paying attention to in terms of how you're going to grow your business, how you're going to improve your marketing. But, you know, don't spend the day on it. And focus on, you know, same thing, you know, focus on what really matters for your business. There's going to be a lot of reports, there's a lot of information that will give you absolutely no intelligence about how to grow your business. So feel free to ignore those. And this is a little bonus. A/B testing is really useful. This happens to be a report for an email campaign that we sent out, and you can send out 2 different versions of a particular campaign, and you can see in that second column from the left that we've added a secondary dimension. Campaign is the dimension that we added, and we have the January News and Notes version 1, and we have January News and Notes version 2. They're both going to the same landing page, which is in that first column, but we can measure what the conversion rate was for the various campaigns for our emails based on the number of visits that we got. And that's a really great trick, especially as you get more comfortable looking at your reports and you get more comfortable with some of these secondary level reports and drilling in a little bit. You can start to get a little bit fancy pants with your A/B testing and really start to parse out now, well, gee, we did a blue button on the A version and we did a red button on the B version, and the red buttons really performed well, or we did a different subject line. Whatever you're testing, you can test different things to see what's resonating with your readers. And as you do start to delve into the A/B testing, just make sure that you are only testing one variable per version so that you can see really what's making that difference. If you change the subject line and the background color and the copy on the email, you're really not going to be able to know what made that difference and what outperformed. So that was a lot of information in a very short period of time. I don't know if there's any questions, Deb, or if you have any questions.
chamber website, I mean, first of all, this was very informative because I had no idea there was an admin page to set up a Google account. I mean, Google Analytics account. So right there, I said, "Oh my God, I'm looking. I'm not. I don't. What I'm looking at has no relevance whatsoever because I have set nothing up." And
Right.
so that right there is something that I've taken away from this that I need to talk to you about separately. Have you come and help because I want to make sure it's done correctly. But
Yeah.
I know with Chamber, our website serves a couple of different purposes. First of all, it's a portal for members. And to me, Google Analytics is important because I want to see the member directory, what people are searching for, what categories they're searching most for. Are they using banners? Do they tend to click through on banners? Are they using the information, clicking through and emailing customers
Right.
our website? Because we don't produce emails. We don't send out emails. As far as we don't give out email addresses. So, if people want to contact a business, they can go to our website and email them directly. Are they doing that? On the other half of our website, because we are a visitor center as well, we get a lot of requests throughout the country for tourism and information. So we're set up, are they looking at the videos on the region? Okay.
Right.
Are they looking at how often are they checking the calendar? What if they're looking at different communities or looking at community profiles? So, I mean, all these things are helpful, and to understand, to put a goal together,
Right.
is to understand basically how it's being used now, so we can set the marketing goal as well.
Right.
So,
and you really bring up a good point too, because a lot of times if you are measuring, okay, well, are those videos being watched? And I sort of alluded to it earlier, whereas, you're looking at some of those reports to see what's happening. But once you get more familiar and you're really drilling into the data, you can start to see, well, you know what? Stuff is happening, but only up until a certain point, and then there's a drop off. And does it make sense to really kind of figure out, is there a problem? Maybe there's a technical glitch, and we've seen that happen where, a form isn't set up correctly so that a lot of traffic to the form, but then, not a lot of follow through. There's no, there's no successful sends. So it does give you information as well, not just about the marketing stuff, but some of the technical stuff where there might be an issue on the website.
also, too, some of the videos are produced by a third party for us, and they sell advertising on those videos. The videos being viewed, number one, are people clicking through to the websites that are surrounding the videos, because this is helpful to my members as far as a investment they're making. If
Absolutely.
I'm seeing, because they might want to, if not clicking through to the video or not clicking through to their website, then maybe that money should be spent someplace else. Right? And where it has more value. So, I mean, I think that this is certainly a start. I think that a lot of businesses should be looking at Google Analytics just to see what they're about and where they can go, and to help them develop a marketing plan. And it doesn't matter how big your business is. Okay. I mean, you want to see how people are using your website and how you can best capitalize on what people are using it for, or helping them steer to what you want them to use it more for. So if people want to reach out for you and speak to you personally, Jan, about your services, how you can go to the Chamber website.
Yes, we are a proud Hudson Valley Gateway Chamber member. We are, and I do get, and actually, I don't know if you caught it on the earlier report, we do get a lot of traffic from the Gateway website, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
But they can certainly reach out via the chamber, or they can reach us directly at westchestermarketingcafe.com, or they can give us a call, 914-806-7720, or they can call the office at 914-502-0634.
I'll be calling you later on today.
And well, you have my red phone number.
Yeah, I do. I know how to get you. But I
You
want to
do.
thank you so much, Jan, for this. And I want to thank you for our live stream seminar series. And I want to thank Mike Graya for producing our series for us. We are doing another live stream on September 26th, which will be on LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn professional, Rob Hellman, coming on and talk to you about, how to make the most of your LinkedIn account. So hope to see you then.
And Deb,
Again, reach out to Jan with any questions and even after this broadcast. And hopefully you'll be tuning on demand if you weren't able to tune in live today.
And Deb,
thanks a lot.
Deb
Yes.
and Jan, this is Mike off camera. I just wanted to do a quick shout out to a couple folks that have joined us. And Cortland Living Best Version Media mentions that with live stream, they can learn while they're snuggling with their cat. And also, so I guess they like the ability to learn from home or office. And Captain Morgan Charters is watching as well, so we give a shout out to them. And I just had one quick question for Jan. For somebody that's never used Google Analytics before, and Deb kind of talked about this at the beginning of the show, but is it an expensive proposition necessarily? Is it a time-consuming proposition? Can a small business take advantage of Google Analytics relatively easily and affordably?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Google Analytics itself is free. And of course, we don't have time to get into the whole privacy thing. I know different people have different opinions on that. But Google Analytics is free to set up. There's a ton of information on, online that you can just educate yourself and really at your own pace learn as much as you care to get into it. Just Google it. But yes, so it's definitely affordable in terms of that. There's no subscription fee or anything. And if you do decide to work with a professional, whether it's us or somebody else, it's going to depend on what you want to contract with them for. In terms of setting it up, it's not that involved. As we saw, getting the account set up is not extremely time intensive. And once it's set up on the website, the analytics code is really doing all of the work. So then it really becomes a question of, how much reporting do you need or want? How frequently do you want to look at your reports? So it's really like anything else. How much of an investment do you want to make? I think for most small businesses, I think I had mentioned earlier, probably once a month, honestly, is sufficient to go in and take a look and see what's happening on your website. Unless you're getting a ton of traffic, the numbers are not going to vary that much certainly from day to day, week to week. And that's why I really say, probably monthly is fine.
That's great. Thank you so much, ladies. Great job today.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody.
And we'll see you soon.